Welcome to Just Relationships, the show that offers you concrete ways to make your relationships better. Whether it's your boss, your spouse, your children, or your friends, the quality of your relationships in life directly affects how you feel about yourself and the success you achieve. Your host, Dr. Duffy Spencer, a psychotherapist, telecoach, author, and seminar leader, will interview top experts to help you learn to manage this essential part of your life. And now, here's your host, Dr. Duffy Spencer.
Greetings to you. Well, I am so pleased today to expand our view of better relationships by going global. Yes, literally by going global. Can we even improve our global relationships as global citizens? Yes, we can, says Francisco DiBlasi. And I am so pleased to introduce to you Francisco DiBlasi. Not only is he an author of a book called Globalization of American Democracy, What is at Stake in the National 2020 Election, but I know him as a colleague first and now a friend and colleague through the American Management Association, where I do corporate training in human relations like team building and conflict resolution and assertiveness training. And Francisco was the global director of the Faculty Management and Development. Long title, Francisco. Welcome, welcome.
Well, I'm delighted to be here with you after almost, I will say, 20 years of working together at AMA.
Yes.
And you were a star among 500 local faculty in the U.S. and 2,500 all over the world. And you now are contributing to my book and my project beyond what you could imagine. Because, yes, absolutely, is plain justice. There were two people. A gentleman I met in 2018 at a party on the west side of Manhattan, and he was a 95-year-old man and had been a producer, a critic, a college professor.
Francisco, thank you. That is so good. Thank you. And I'm so excited about your authorship, your brilliance, your writing, and the idea, and I love democracy. Yay, let's hear it for democracy. Yeah. So you write about individuals, you write about groups, you write about cultures, and now you write about global citizenship. So give us the short version. There's so much here.
I know. The main issue is we are at a crossroads right now of a process that started with the Mayflower arrival. When the Mayflower came to the shores in this country, they had escaped from England because they considered them kind of a rebel, and they went to the Netherlands to avoid persecution, but they found that the Dutch were very liberal. So they came here without any authorization from a king or anything. And when they arrived before landing, they decided to sign a contract that became the first constitution ever by the people, establish how they're going to govern themselves.
Wow.
That was the main document that most people, I have it in the book, and that's the starting point. Then the second thing that came that is very interesting is the nations, the division that we see right now in the country in terms of voters of one color, voters of another, one party, the blues or the reds or whatever. Yeah. It's just a reflection of nations or cultural agrupations that existed throughout the United States and that remain intact in many ways. And these are very well described in a book by Colin Woodward called 11 Separate Nations with Entirely Different Cultures. And wow. they range from the better known one, the Yankees, then the Southern, the New Netherlands, the Appalachia, the New France. And in other words, that's a group that was at the core things, okay? And then on top of that, there were the African slaves.
Yes.
And then on the basis of that, they were, all of that group came at the really critical point with the Age of Enlightenment in Europe. And then the founding fathers, who we call the founding fathers, were really inspired by the same movement that inspired the French Revolution. And that's the other critical point. And then the next really critical point came with President Lincoln. And at that junction in history, you had practically a group that the economy depended mostly on inexpensive free labor almost of black slaves, African slaves, and the North that had decided already in the U.S. Congress had decided in 1815 to abolish 1820, I think it is, to abolish the slavery. But they got to an accommodation that the South could keep it and the North would not keep it. And that led to the Civil War. That was a major change. And Lincoln in the Gettysburg Address is the one that really opened the doors to the civil rights and where we are today. So what I see today, and this is at the heart of my book, is a point where there's no return. The country has to accept that slavery was wrong. Slavery was wrong in the Bible. The Bible did not condemn slavery. They only said in the Bible that you have to treat your slaves well, and you shouldn't make slaves on your own trials. And that was wrong. And I consider myself, I believe that slavery is only second to genocide in terms of the aberration.
Powerful.
In terms of the aberrations of the human race. It's unacceptable.
It's so beyond belief awful to enslave other human beings for free labor. Right. It is beyond the pale. And there was beyond the beyond.
There was a politician that said not long ago that afterwards the slaves were better off, and that perhaps they could be better off even today. Well, I have another piece of news that makes this crucial point in history so relevant, is the fact that there are at least anywhere from 40 to 70 million slaves around the world.
How many?
From 40 to 70 million slaves in modern forms of slavery. The modern forms of slavery is a way of saying human trafficking, exploitations of individuals through threat of use of force, coercion, abduction, fraud, or deception. The North Koreans, whose leader is being praised in many ways as a powerful man or that, has a country with the largest number of slaves that they even sell to other countries like Russia and other locations to perform free services. And at the Olympics, it is believed that some of the young women that were attending the Olympics were asked to perform sexual favors for the elite of the government North Koreans that were in the Olympics. So
let me see if I got this straight, Francisco DiBlasi. You are saying that North Koreans have exported the largest number of slaves to other countries?
No, they have them in their own country.
Okay, they have them in their own country.
However, some of that is sending indentured slaves or people, workers, to other countries, like in Russia, to build the soccer stadiums that were necessary for. So this whole mess comes at the same time that the COVID-19 virus comes and the national elections. And how does democracy fits into this is essential. What is happening right now, from my perspective as a political scientist, but also as an early student of physics and science, is that democracy is the only defense that we have about the dark age of the autocrats, and
Right.
the drug cartels. There are a number of actors right now that will benefit from the weakening of the American democracy, and the effect of globalization of democracy is that if this country goes, you see what's happening in Brazil. Brazil is in the hands of a clone of the current administration in this country. And if they are burning the Amazon, they invoke sovereignty, you name it. But the Amazon produces 40% of the oxygen that we breathe.
Yeah.
And the administration in here is opening the pristine Alaska forest, okay, that produces 25% of the oxygen that we breathe, that the whole world breathes, okay?
Yeah.
Opening up to exploitation. So we're not talking about, oil is cleaner, carbon emissions are bad or anything. We're talking basic survival of the human race.
The trees are our lungs, Francisco. The trees are our lungs.
Absolutely.
They give us oxygen that we need. That's their waste product, and our waste product is their food, carbon dioxide. So I just want to underscore what you said. You said it so well. Democracy is our only defense against autocrats. And autocrats would rule through power and be concerned with themselves and their own pocketbook and that power and money, and not caring about the people's needs.
Absolutely. And the most important thing is that if this country becomes run by autocrats and the institutions, and the other thing too is that, for instance, the real danger with Russia right now is not any deals that they may have, any collusion in the elections or anything, but is their way of weakening the internal structures of the United States by dividing the relationships within the country, by weakening the trust of the people, which is a relationship between the people and the government. Remember, democracy is the government of the people, for the people, by the people. It's all about relationships. So if you undermine the institutions that safeguard us, like the FBI, the CIA, all the national intelligence and defense apparatus, okay, then we are doomed. We are doomed because there's a basic military strategic principle. It's not only about having more power, but undermining the power of your opponents. So in this case, it's not that Russia is increasing its power unilaterally. No, their game is to undermine our internal institutions. We become weaker, okay? And then here comes the issue of COVID. What happened during a New Year's Eve dinner that I hosted in my house? One of my friends is a very well-known biologist, and she warned me that the possibility of a viral infection that could be of global proportions was imminent. And what did the current administration do? Dismantle that. Dismantle the group that was supposed to be within the White House to handle the issues behind the global pandemic. On the other hand, cancel the treaty with Russia on proliferation of nuclear weapons, saying we have to modernize nuclear weapons at a tremendously high cost. And for what purpose?
Right.
Okay.
So Francisco, I just want to go back a moment because you're saying so many important things. So Russia is out to weaken our democratic system. And if they succeed, we are doomed. Now tell me what would be the result if they do succeed? What's the worst? Yeah.
The worst is that, first of all, international credibility. Second, the weakness equivalent to what happened, why AIDS was successful, the virus, because it weakened the internal immune system that defend us. The HIV virus didn't kill anyone. What killed people were the opportunistic infections.
Yeah.
And this is the same thing. You know, the Russians are a virus that is infecting us, okay, and we become weaker to issues like internal peace, harmony, unity, improved relationships, and a strong immune system that protects us against foreign aggressions.
I love that. I love that, Francisco. You're looking at a purposeful dismantlement of our external systems, our ecosystems, and our internal biological systems.
Absolutely.
It is so awful to think about,
Well, it doesn't stop there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
More bad news first, right? More bad news first. Yes.
Let me put it in these terms. I am 75 years old, and I'm writing this book. The back cover says 2053. We lost the earth. I'm happy that I'm 75 years old and I will not live to be alive in 2053.
Oh, wow.
Unless the young people, anyone under 40, and if their parents and grandparents, if they really, really claim that they love them, not to take a strong stance in terms of the environment. We are exterminating one species at an average, one species a day, and thus making the chain of life weaker, as weak as the missing links that connects the whole chain.
Yeah, that's right. We're only as strong as our weakest link.
Exactly.
So you're saying, Francisco DiBlasi, that we have about 30 years left for this planet unless we change our tune.
A minor correction that is used widely. The planet is going to survive because it's a piece of rock. It's life on the planet. It's life on the planet what is at stake. So from my point of view, and here now we're going to enter in a more contentious or controversial issue. I worked my first 21 years for International Planned Parenthood on population development and the environment. Mm-hmm. And when I was given the job, the leader of the organization, after being interviewed by a whole number of people, he asked me, well, kid, you are very good. Your academic background is very good. But what do you know about family planning and well, my whole family, I said, is of only children. And so our mothers were educated women who worked. Mm. So if it wasn't because of that, I wouldn't be in the States here because my parents paid for my education. Yeah. And the guy stopped me and he says, kid, you got the job.
Oh.
So I chose to work with the poorest of the poor countries. And then within that, work with the members of Congress. Eventually, I got to work with the members of Congress to change the laws and to get an understanding on the impact of maternal and child health on the development of the country. If you don't have, for instance, the other issue is immigration. Okay, if we look at the story of immigration in this country was not built exclusively by the Anglo descent, the British descent people. Was built by African slaves and by every wave of immigrants that came into this country.
Yes.
Now, the issue that is happening right now with the Latin American immigrants that are called the Latins is basically that the Caucasians are concerned, and I'm a full-blooded Caucasian, so it's not that I am, defending my own cause. It's just a matter of science and justice. Mm-hmm. They are afraid that in a short period of time, the Caucasians will become the minority of this country vis-a-vis the people of 50 shades of color.
Right.
Okay? So that's an issue that this country has to embrace. First of all, the wrong of slavery, the lack of opportunity for people of different colors, okay? And the issue of world population. The virus came to existence because when we encroach on the natural habitat of animals, they facilitates the jumping of viruses from animals into humans.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, for instance, in Africa, some types of zebras have become extinct because we're taking their environment, and they cannot survive. But also the virus in China, regardless of how it came, is a product of jumping from animals into humans. And there's no guarantee that next year we may have a different virus.
Yes, absolutely.
And we are not prepared for that. And we are not prepared with the leadership that we have right now. And let people make up their mind, where their priorities are.
Right.
But if you fear someone rioting in the streets or what have you, I advise you to look into the danger of another virus hitting us.
Sure.
Or the terrorists are dormant and they're waiting to attack us at any time. So if we undermine the federal agencies like the FBI, like the CIA, thinking that they are not credible, that the deep state and all those things, we're undermining our defenses like it happened with the AIDS virus. The AIDS virus undermined the defenses of the human being. So in this case, it is the defenses of our nation.
So let me jump in, Francisco, because when you talk about studying the impact of bad maternal health and child health and wanting to improve the health and improve the impact of good health, what about this conspiracy theory that there are people who are purposely trying to depopulate, not control birth in terms of birth control, but actively trying to depopulate the earth, especially the third world countries?
Well, that was my fight during 21 years. I had to fight against organized religion, because that's very well described in a book by Professor Samuel Huntington, which is one of the most preeminent political scientists of the 20th century. He was a director of international studies at Harvard University. And he had the book that is not perfect, but it describes very accurately what we're going through. It's called The Clash of Civilizations. With the collapse of the Soviet Union and the bipolar arrangement between the United States, the equilibrium established by the United States and England and France on the one hand, and the communist nations led by the Soviet Union, once that's erased because communism failed, let's be clear about one thing. Capitalism is the most effective way to promote development and prosperity, but not rampant capitalism managed by autocrats, multinational corporations, and people who are only interested in profits. It has to be a balance.
Oh, yeah. That's wonderful. And we have just a couple of minutes, Francisco. So that is such an incredibly good point, that it's not capitalism per se, but the rampant capitalism by fear-mongering and greed, and people only interested in accumulating their own wealth and power at the expense of the little people.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Because it's interesting that you put it that way, because I've always been an individualist, and I believe in individualism. We have the right to forge our own destiny, but it is the belief in extreme individualism, I call it extreme individualism, that precludes our ability to ask for help. Yeah. I can't ask for help, because if I need help, that means I'm needy. And I was taught that I'm supposed to be self-sufficient. And this is a belief that many, 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 many Americans have. So they don't ask for help. Mm-hmm. So, Francisco, I just want everyone to know that they are in for a real treat, because you are coming back next week. because we have to close the show now. This is part one of a two-part series with Francisco DiBlasi, and we have just a couple of minutes. So what would you say, Francisco, just in case someone cannot tune in to next week's part two? What do you want to leave people with right now?
Don't fall for voting because of fear or because of the marketing techniques, that if you watch your next TV program with advertisements, the advertisements are very clear. They offer you a product that will solve your problems, that will make you happy, that will entertain you, blah, 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 blah. Okay? Politicians are not a product that you will buy in the market. Rationalize. I prepare a scorecard that people that send me an email to mydecision2020 at yahoo.com. I think that's, I have been doing so many things, yes. And I will send them the scorecard. And the purpose of that scorecard is to look at the attributes that you should look for in a candidate and your own attributes.
Okay, so we only have a minute. We only have a minute, Francisco. So how can people get your scorecard?
By sending me an email, and they can use it. They fill in the scorecard for themselves.
Yeah.
Okay? It's mydecision2020, at gmail.com.
mydecision2020@gmail.com.
Yeah, and in there you will have, and it's a very easy system, and I explain it to you. I developed it 4 years ago for the university to select counselors, okay? I was a head counselor. You have 3 columns. One is you look at the candidate and you say, definitely this person has this attribute.
Yeah. So and what then, you did, go ahead. We have to close.
Okay.
Basically, you're saying that it's kind of easy to take. It's easy to understand, and it's a very good guidance for people. And I am going to do that. Can you send me one? I'll email you, Francisco. But okay, so mydecision2020@gmail.com for a scorecard on the basic things we're looking for in a candidate, and information about different stands and different platforms and different repercussions and consequences. Something along those lines. And yes, we'll talk about it more next week.
Okay.
And this is Dr. Duffy Spencer interviewing Francisco DiBlasi, who is the author of The Globalization of American Democracy, and how to deal with the 2020 election in that regard. So, Francisco DiBlasi, thank you so much, Dr. Duffy Spencer, saying goodbye for now and wishing you great relationships.